Oh, so you
This morning, we're gonna learn from Rabbi Goldie Guy. She was ordained from Yeshivat Maharat, and she worked as the assistant rabbi at Anshe Sholem B'nai Israel for 2 years. And now she is the director of Hadar Chicago. She is from New York, but happily living in Lakeview. And we're so glad to have you with us this morning. Just so I'm just going to let everyone know who's here. So people know Steve Peskin is on Zoom with us, and Michael Zedek, and Ali Nepler, and Neil Brief, good morning, and Larry Edwards, and Rabbi Kensky, and Rabbi David Oler, and Rabbi Lisa Green, and Rabbi Sandra Sharak. And with us today are Rabbis Michelle Stern and Ora Schnitzer, Simon Schnitzer, and Ed Friedman, Doug Felton, Rivka Glick, and Michael Belinsky. So focus on everyone.
And does everyone have access to the sources? You could also pull up Rabbi Nachman's Torah.
I don't see them in the chat yet.
63. It should be in the chat.
Yes.
It's not in the chat yet.
Oh, okay. Then let me just put it again because I'm more
Okay.
on.
There you
It's
go.
Aria.
Do you see it now, everybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
If you look for
Great.
this is from Aria. So
Okay.
it's Likutei Moharan 2, Torah 63.
So everyone could see you.
We're going to learn a little from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. Thanks for joining this morning. Hopefully, as people are eating here in the room, or if you feel comfortable being closer, we can make this into a conversation, a chavrusa on this text. I have teachings from my teacher, Rabbi Don Hauser, who introduced me to Rabbi Nachman and his teachings when I was in seminary a few years ago. More than a few, I promise. I'm older than I look. But that's what we're going to learn this morning. Before we start, I just wanted to mention the passing of a dear teacher this morning, Rabbi Moshe Khan. I'm not sure if any of you have had exposure to his Torah, or so I, after college, when I was in seminary, I wanted to, like many of you, I was very passionate about Torah, and I wanted to keep learning. I was in an Orthodox milieu, and there was one program in North America offering advanced Talmud and Halacha studies for Orthodox women, and that's called GPATS. It's the Graduate Program in Advanced Talmudic Studies at YU. It meets in the Stern Beit Midrash on the 6th floor, and it's accredited through the Revel Graduate School, but it was the one option, essentially, to go on and learn. And it was a place offering smicha level studies, but because it was Orthodox, it wasn't pushing that bar. I wasn't saying we're giving them smicha, but we studied kashrut, we studied nida, and we studied in the mornings. We studied Talmud be'iyun and intensive Talmud study. And Rabbi Khan was a Rebbe in that program, I think, since its inception or shortly thereafter. He was a pioneer. I know it may not be the right framework, but I often felt about the Talmidei Chachamim who taught us there of, they've reached such a high caliber themselves, they could be gaining more notoriety and climbing sort of that ladder in the men's yeshiva, but they chose to give of their knowledge to women so that women could rise to those ranks as well. And opened up the doors potentially to advance Talmud and Halacha study to women, and he was one of the pioneers of that. He taught at Drisha, going way back. Yeah, so I was actually, I don't know if this is recorded. I don't know if I should say honest things, but I was actually intimidated by his Talmud shir because he was so demanding of his students. He pushed so that you understood every single word on the page. That was the Gemara itself, the Rashis, the Tosfot. If you missed a word, he'd make you answer for it. And if you ever asserted anything in shir, he'd make you prove it. And it was just, and I would sit in my corner of the Beit Midrash prepping for my calmer class, which was more my vibe, and I could hear his shir getting into the rough and tumble of it. And outside of class, and it's because of it was really the fire of Torah. Outside of class, he was the gentlest person. And my experience in his halacha shir at Drisha was just amazing. Again, like taking us very seriously as students of Torah and wanting and holding us to the highest standard. And the Torah world for women for certain would not be the same without him. And he battled cancer for a while. And we lost him too young. I didn't know the status. I wasn't one of his closer students. I didn't know how he was doing. And he was still putting out advertisements. He was planning another Talmud class over Zoom shortly, because he had this fire in him to keep teaching and give of the Torah to as many people as possible. So this is Eloi Nishmat, Rabbi Khan. If those of you who you're all local, the funeral is going to be tomorrow in New Jersey. So I'm just holding that this morning, thinking of Rabbi Khan and everything he gave me, my teachers, my colleagues. Yeah. All right. Zichrono livracha. I can't believe it.
Yeah, that was my daughter Ruthie's halacha teacher.
Yeah.
2007.
Wow. Yeah. So he taught Ruth Belinsky halacha in 2007 at Drisha as well. So like just generations of women Torah scholars owe him, and he did it in such a humble way. So we're gonna transition to not halacha and not Gemara, which is kind of like I would have prepped that if I knew. We're gonna learn Likutei Moharan. I thought we'd do so may our Torah be for his neshama's aliyah. It's hard to fathom. We're going to be learning on the topic of Tu B'Shvat, the Torah of the trees. Rabbi Nachman is famously known by the Naomi Shemer reworking of his Torah of the Shirat HaAsavim. So I thought we'd take a look at that Torah this morning and learn it inside. And there's a small connection to our not so distant Parshiot. Yeah, you can take it. Which starts out the Torah. So what you have on the sheet is the sections from the Torah itself, and at the end we have a source number 9. Source number 9 draws on the parsha. So Rabbi Nachman opens by talking about Zimrat Haaretz, the song of the land, but Zimrat Haaretz there it means something else in the pshat, in the literal reading of the text. So Rabbi Nachman quotes. So if you turn to source 9, Rabbi Nachman quotes from this pasuk. It's the brothers coming back to Yaakov to tell him we've met with this leader of Egypt. He seems harsh, right? What are we to do? We have to bring. So their father Israel said to them, if it must be so, do this. Vayomer Elohem Yisrael Avihem Imkein Efo Zot Asu Kechu Mizimrat Haaretz B'Kleichem Vehoridu Laish Mincha Ma'atzori U'Ma'atvash Nuchot Balot Botnim Ushkedim. So if it must be so, take from the choice products of the land in your baggage. Zimrat Haaretz, the choice of the land, and carry them as a gift for the man, some balm, honey, gum, ladanum, pistachio nuts, and almonds. So as the sort of mincha, an offering to the sovereign of Egypt, who was his son Yosef. And there's this the fruits of the land are referred to as Zimrat Haaretz because zemer is an agricultural term, right? Means you know this probably. Zemer would mean lismor. Okay, so lismor, like in our immediate understanding, right? We're like, okay, that's playing an instrument, right? Or singing, right? Mizmor le David, right? Zemer is mizmor, to sing, to play an instrument. But what is zemer in the agricultural context? Okay, it's one of the malachas of Shabbat. You're not allowed to lizmor. You're not allowed to prune your plant. Yeah, and there's a great vort that I always keep in mind from my teacher, another teacher of mine, Judy Goshen, who teaches about that. What's the connection between zemer and zmira when we sing on Shabbat and the agricultural process of pruning? So pruning is a malacha because it's a creative labor. Why is cutting something away creative? because it allows it to grow, right? It takes away the parts that are unnecessary and it allows further growth. So even though it seems destructive, it's actually creative. So too with Zmirot, what they do in our souls is to kind of help us cut through what's in our soul and unnecessary, right? It helps us to refine what's going on and allows that growth, especially Zmirot Shabbat. So that's what I always think about with Zemer and Zmirot. And Rabbi Nachman here is making that same connection. Yeah, it's a beautiful word for any Shabbos Tish, any Shabbos singing. I'm sure there's more there you could develop on your own. But so Rabbi Nachman always starts out with da, right? You should know this. You know this in your soul. It is something I'm teaching you, but you really already understand it. Da ki Yaakov Avinu sheshalach banav aser hashvatim leYosef, when he sent the 10 tribes to Yosef, shalach imahem nigun shel Eretz Yisrael. He sent with him the song of Eretz Yisrael. Now there's background here of what Yosef might represent in Kabbalah and Kabbalistic terms. So Yosef is thought of as Tzaddik Yisod Olam. Okay, so there's more to say. So let me take a step back. Plants and Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman had a dialogue with the natural world. Rabbi Nachman was in conversation with the plant world, right? He taught his students to go out into the field and to speak to God. Many of his stories that he wrote Torahs, which were his teachings, and he also wrote stories, parables that many of them were set in the forest itself. And so the forest represents, right, the kind of basic fundamental nature of a person, as we are naturally, right? When we're allowed to just grow without cultivation, without filtering, without culture, being cultured or in any way, right? Forest is wild growth in our basic instincts. It's full of vitality, but it's also full of danger. There could be, danger hiding in the forest. People waiting to sabotage you as you get lost along the way, right? If you get lost in the forest, it's not easy to find your way back. All of these are associations with growth of the natural world. Okay, and so the Torah that we're learning, Rabbi Nachman doesn't focus on the broader natural world and the wild growth. He goes down to like a very basic element of it, which is the blade of grass, right? Just the esev, the asavim that are on the face of the earth. What Rabbi Nachman sees in a blade of grass is that it's small and simple and has very simple value. He sees it as a symbol for simplicity, for perfection, for dedication. Rabbi Nachman would say, and this is a quote from Sichot Haran, from conversations that were reported of Rabbi Nachman, "Ru'u ketad esav zeh oseh b'tzmimut ritzon bor'o." See how simply this blade of grass is doing the will of its creator, right? Imagine looking at the grass in that way of, it's not complicated. The grass just grows and does what God wants it to do. I'm just talking right now. Yes, I'm talking outside. I will point to numbers when I'm going by number of the sources. Yes, I love that, right? That angels kind of whisper in the ears of blades of grass and tell them grow. Imagine those angels are talking to us as well. Right. And so in other places, Rabbi Nachman talks about a dream he had on the pasuk v'natati esev b'tzadcha l'metecha, and I will give grass in your fields for your animals. And he sees esev is connecting to the avot, connecting to the patriarchs, and maybe it's connected to their simple pursuit of a dedication to God. Okay, and in Torah Lamed Ted, in Torah 39, he actually breaks down the root esev, and he says it stands for Oseh Shalom B'Mramav. Esev is he who makes peace in the heights, in the heavenly realms, right? But and soon we'll see what that might mean. So in Torah 63, Rabbi Nachman's ears hear the song of the Asavim. So Esev, Rashi Tevot, Oseh Shalom B'Ramah, they stand for making peace. The shalom, the peace for Rabbi Nachman is kind of found in the upper realms, in the Shamayim. It's where there isn't competition, there isn't taking up material space or a fight for taking up material space. And Rabbi Nachman sees that there may be, right, we may perceive it that there only can be shalom in such a place as the heavens, not like a place here on earth where we're connected to material life and people are constantly fighting over how much space they can take up. There's a finite resource. In the heavens, there's no tzimtzum, there's no need for anyone to narrow themselves, to limit themselves, because there's endless bounty, right? Or there's endless space, there's no limitations. And on earth, we are kind of fighting for these finite resources, and that leads to machloket, that leads to competition, that leads to separation. So if the earth itself is the place of machloket, the esev, the blade of grass, represents in its finiteness, and its taking up this little space as possible, represents this kind of tzimtzum, this separation, and this narrowing into oneself, right? Containing within oneself in the smallest way possible, right? That machloket doesn't need to happen, even in this realm, even in the earthly realm, right? You can be like the blade of grass and live in your own simple way, but taking up as much space as you need and not claiming the space of the other, and that's the blade of grass. Okay. So Rabbi Nachman says Esev can also spread across the earth, and and each blade of grass exists on its own, sings this song. What is this song? We're going to talk about what is this song that the blades of grass sing. And before we get to the song, we're going to touch on the opening piece, which Rabbi Nachman draws on the story of Yaakov and the sons. Okay, so let's read in number 1. So this numbering is just me breaking it up into paragraphs. Again, it's on Svaria, and you can look at it there. Daki Yaakov Avinu, when Yaakov Avinu sent his 12 sons to Yosef, he sent with them the song of the land of Israel. And that's the secret of understanding this command of Yaakov to his sons. He doesn't say take from the fruit, he says take from the zemer, which we talked about, comes from, there is an actual verb there, but that's the word play. Bechinat zemer v'nigun, right? And Rabbi Nachman says this is representing or holds within it the essence of zemer, of playing song, and nigun, wordless melody. Sheshalach al yadam liyosef kmo sheparash Rashi mizimrat lashon zemer. So Rashi also says there, mizimrat, this connotes song or zemer. Okay. In the story of Yosef and his brothers. Okay, now I'm not reading inside anymore. I'm talking a little outside. This is all based on the teachings of Rav Don Hauser, my teacher, Rabbi Nachman. In the story of Yosef and his brothers, Yosef represents peace, and his brothers represent machloket. Right? We clearly remember the story. Okay, you don't buy it. I like that. I got laughter. No?
No, she took my.
Oh, okay.
More copy.
Never mind. Okay, so I don't know if all of you buy that.
Because I have writing all over it.
Oh no, you can have. Oh, okay, fine. Okay, I don't know if you guys buy that, right? If that Yosef was the representing peace in that story. Can you make an argument for why that might be, or do you buy it yet? And then we'll get into the reason why Rabbi Nachman thinks that. How would, in the story of Joseph and his brothers, the brothers are machloket, right? And they're going to align with like olam hazeh, right? And trying to take up space and ego. And Yosef is peace, and he's the one who does tzimtzum and limits himself. Do you see that in the story? I'm just asking from your. Yes, I would like. Yes, that was a question that begs an answer.
The whole plot of Yosef was to see the Torah come true before they all come together, and to bring peace among his family and bring them all together again. So he was the peacemaker.
He is the peacemaker because he's simply following the divine plan, which will ultimately lead to unity of the family. Okay.
That we were looking for.
No, I'm asking
No, no,
because
no, I'm
my,
saying that answer that might have come from what you were looking for.
I don't know if you say this to your students, but I'm not looking for anything, right? I'm looking to
No, that's how I think of it.
there. I mean, Rabbi Nachman says something, right? But I'm not looking for you to guess Rabbi Nachman. I'm looking to you as folks who are learned, and I'm asking, does that make sense to you as an alignment, right? Yosef, peace. Yeah.
Not at all.
Okay, not at all. Thank you. Push back, please. That's what this is my instinct.
No, I mean, look, obviously, but there isn't a sense of final reconciliation just until the end of the Osage.
Okay.
The brothers fear him until the very end, and when he finally says, "Don't worry, I'm not going to do anything to you, hopefully God's plan, whatever." That's not a terribly embracing
Great.
statement.
Right, that's not a peaceful image, right? If Yosef's brothers feared him until Yosef had to tell them after Yaakov died, don't worry, I'm not going to kill you. There must not have been a message of peace in all the actions he was taking, or nothing that came across too strongly.
It's a message. There's a difference between the two things.
You're saying his intention was peaceful.
Right, one is
Okay.
the message, and the other one is what the intention is.
Okay, so you're saying it could still be that he had the intent of peace, but the messaging was off, right? They didn't feel that from him.
He doesn't ultimately act with revenge.
But I don't know, I'm thinking back to the beginning of the story with showing off the coat. Like that's, hey guys, come listen to this dream. You were bowing down to me.
Right.
They're gossiping about his brothers. I mean, obviously we could be Melamed Zchut. We can, okay, but sure, we're not limiting Yosef's growth, right? We're saying he grew into maybe being the peacemaker, but there are elements of his story that certainly jump out to me where he's kind of antagonizing in a way. Maybe that's in his youth and he had to learn and go through what he did, and that makes sense. Okay? You mean playing with them, saying like, oh, I'm gonna keep Binyamin and test you? Maybe that was also part of God's plan, meaning he had to see that they'd done tshuva and changed. Okay, we can argue both sides, right? But I don't know if it automatically jumps out at me that Yosef is a person of peace, given that I don't know, he feels like someone who's trying to get a rise out of his brothers. I mean, for maybe for good reason, right?
Think of his actions as the administrator for Pharaoh. I mean, obviously, basically enslaving the whole country to Pharaoh. Is this a good thing?
Okay, right. He's also enslaving people as a result. He's like, I'll save you, but I'm going to enslave you first.
Just the opposite. He said to them, you want to sell yourself a slave to me? Don't do that. Sell the land to me. I'll give you seed. You'll plant it.
And then the whole, but it does make them poor. It takes away their
He
land.
does take away private property.
Right, it takes away their land, even if he doesn't. Yeah. Any thoughts from the Zoom
Well, they say.
realm? I'm trying. Folks want to react from the Zoom world? That's a no. All right, one more comment from here. Someone unmuted. Okay, we've got a neutral sense. Great. Okay. Okay, so we have two sides, and we also have, he was just living his life, right? He doesn't know what's going on. Did someone unmute and want to say something? Because I heard it unmute. No. Takes work, yes. Yeah.
Figure out, like, are they the one? But
Okay.
he wasn't hurting them in the process,
Okay,
giving them a little grief. Okay.
good. He gave them grief, but it was ultimately neutral. It made sense. Okay.
You have to give up something in order to make.
Right. You're saying that was part of the peacemaking process, that Joseph had had to have them give him something in order to come towards them and believe that they had changed to make that peace. Beseder, totally. Just went, just Rivka has her hand up. Yes. I also wondered that as I was learning this through my teacher of like, what does it mean to have peace? We're going to see like his argument is the following, right? That Yosef in the Kabbalah is seen as tzaddik yesod olam, right? He's seen as the ultimate tzaddik, and tzaddik yesod olam in the Kabbalah is about shalom, is about like being measured, having stability, yesod, foundational, someone that is associated with peace. Yeah, right. And then right, there's also interplay here that we're going to talk about malchut and yesod. And so I'm not an expert on Kabbalah. I'm gonna put that out there. Chassidut obviously comes from Kabbalah, and so this is the background that I was taught about this. And so this is where folks who have more expertise on Kabbalah, feel free to chime in. So he was tzaddik yesod olam, and that's about shalom. And really, you could say that he was shalom, because what is shalom? It's someone that wants to find their place and equanimity in any sort of condition. And we might be able to say that about Yosef, right? No matter where he landed, he found his place. He found a way to fit in and a way to function within that system, right? When he was, except with his brothers, I don't, like I still find that difficult. But in Egypt, we see it. Shalom and shlemut, okay, maybe bringing them together, or being shalom with himself is an interesting argument that of Hauser makes, right? That Yosef knew how to be at peace with himself. So no matter, and that's what he was actually doing when he was saying, hey, I had this dream, right? He's just like talking about his life. He's being who he is, and he's not ashamed of who he is or what he might become. He's just at peace. Similarly, he's saying with his relationship with his father, right? He wears his coat and he goes, oh, cool, my dad gave me this coat. It's kind of like very nonchalant, like I am who I am. This is my place in the family. And the brothers are reacting to that and saying, you're so prideful, right? You're taking up too much space. That's not just your space. You're taking what should be ours, and we're jealous. Right. So that's the machloket piece and the shalom piece. If we're going to see Yosef as shalom, he's as someone who fits in, someone who is at peace with who he is, what he needs to do in any situation. You can disagree just a second. And the brothers are machloket, right? They're the ones who are at war with him and saying, no, you don't, we don't see that. We see gava, we see pride here, not peacefulness. And yeah, so we had a very excited point in the back. Good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. He brings gossip about his brothers to his father. Sounds bad. True. Oh, wait, we did have a hand. We had a hand.
Goldie, could you share the comments from the room with those of us online? It's hard to hear.
Yeah, I'm trying to reflect back after, so that when I'm doing that, that's what I'm trying to do. So you can tell me if it's not clear. Okay.
So I think I've lost you. I mean, I understand that Yosef on the like Sphirot chart is connected with Yesod and like foundation, but I have lost you with the fact that you keep connecting him to Shalom, because he is not at peace. Like,
okay,
he cries, constantly is crying his brokenness out towards his And it is an indication that, and he doesn't cry at all these other times when we might cry, like, you know, he's thrown in jail, he's accused of things. Like, there's all these times where he, you know, one might be afraid and then cry, and he doesn't cry, but he cries in something that's so core to him is broken. It is not shalom. It is not whole. His relationship with his brothers is completely not whole, and he cries and wails so that everyone hears him, and that is it all coming to the surface. So I'm blown by this teaching.
Yes. Okay. So what was said was that Yosef often cries out in pain, kind of trying to process everything that's going on, and that does not seem to reflect equanimity, peacefulness, wholeness. It seems to reflect someone who's kind of broken by what's going on, doesn't know what to do with it, and cries out in this very just reactive way of not knowing what to do and being ill at ease with what's happening.
And the way he names his kids, you know, with Menashe,
Yeah.
I should forget about that.
Great. Great. He names his kids Menashe, right? Like, may God make me forget everything that's happened. True, real, good. The essential argument here is Tzaddik Yisod Olam is associated with Shalom in Kabbalah. That's the piece that is the proof text. That's it. So I can't say I understand all of your pushback, and I'm with you. And we can there might be something here on a Kabbalistic level of Shalom versus Machloket that we can sit with as we go forward. Maybe. Yes. Okay, maybe there's gematria that equals that Yosef equals Shalom. My father was here in this class. He would definitely have that gematria at hand. He really likes gematria. What? Oh. Rabbi Brief, are you here? Yes, Rabbi Brief is here. Do you have a gematria that speaks about Yosef being wholeness? I don't know. So Rabbi Brief, you are free to comment on that, or anyone else on the screen who might be an expert in. Siri might know. Great. Okay. All right. Okay. So the argument is, and we can argue with it as much as we want. I'm with you. Okay. Right. That Yosef is even when he's in the pit, even when he's in jail, right? He looks to God and he says, I'm here. I'm ready to be what I need to be. I'm just myself. I know I have nothing else to rely upon but you, God. And that's and he believes and is resting on God's on his faith in God. Doesn't matter what the external reality is, what it's bringing him. That's the shalom hapnimi, like the inner peace of saying, and that might be also right. He's following God's plan, right? And he knows that in some sense that he's following God's plan. Doesn't know what it's going to be, but knows that that's what he needs to rely upon and to keep going. Yeah, and God makes him successful. Okay, Rabbi Brief unmuted. So maybe we have some gematria. Yes, no? Zoom. Okay. Rivka's got something to share with us about gematria. Sure. Yeah. I know 26, but I lost you on the rest of it. But that's okay. Okay. Okay, there is a way to prove gematrially. Okay, numerically English. Okay, great. Okay, so this is Yosef, and he is just like grass. He has the ability to grow from the places that are the simplest, the darkest, right, the lowest, these are the places where Yosef grows and flourishes. Right, in those places where he falls and he realizes, I am just as I am, I need to rely upon God and nothing else. And that is Yosef and the Esev. Okay, so let's go back to the text itself. Yeah, I'm gonna quote. Okay, great. Okay, we're in section 2, and again, as you come up with your own Torah understanding of this, please feel free. Hida, again, you know this in your soul and your bones. Kikoro ever yesh lo nigun miyuchad, which we're familiar from the song. Each and every shepherd has their own special melody. According to the grasses in front of him and the place in which they are shepherding. Sham, every animal has a specific grass which it needs to eat. He does know a shepherd won't always go to the same place. And according to the grass that the animals need and the place that they find themselves in. So each and every place and each and every grass found in that place has a song which it sings, and that's the concept of Perek Shira. And from the grass's song, the shepherd's melody is created. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go into the commentary a little bit here, and you'll tell me if it's totally far afield. Yeah. So what I loved about this class that I took this, what?
No pun intended.
Maybe. Yes, no pun intended. What I loved about this class is that he would read us the Torah, he would sing us the Torah essentially, and then he would close his eyes and just go on and be divinely inspired in whatever sense that was. It made sense or it didn't make sense, and then he left and you have to try and figure it out. I don't know if that's like a naive way of looking at mystics, but it was so that's how I tend to take his Torahs in general, Rabbi Hauser, of trying to understand, like, okay, so how did it come back to the text itself? Where is he feeling this from? And there's probably deeper Kabbalistic connections again that I don't know. Okay, so Rabbi Hauser talks further about that pasuk that opened the teaching, right? We take from the zemer of the arts, take from the melody of the land, or the best fruits of the land, the klechem. So Yaakov was giving his sons the best of the land, or zimrat haaretz, the melody of the land. And what is zimrat haaretz? So Rabbi Nachman says that is the nigun. That is the melody of Eretz Yisrael. Obviously, the pshat is not that. Chumi zimat haaretz is the tvuah, the fruit of the land. Chumi ma shezamru, take from what you've pruned from the land. Okay, but Rabbi Nachman comes to teach us that the actual harvest from the land is the nigun, not the fruits themselves, but the nigun, and that is what is actually what nourishes us. More than, which again, we're taking this with our creative lens on and metaphors, okay, but more than we are nourished by fruit or the actual produce of the land, the fruits themselves are actually nourished from the spiritual state of the land, the fruits that we sow spiritually, from satisfaction, from knowing that we are sent by God and we're at peace with where we find ourselves, what we need to be doing in the world, because we're doing the shlichut, we're emissaries of God. And from that feeling that we are being led by God, and that God has a ro'eh ne'eman, a devoted shepherd who is guiding us along the way. Moshe, the Torah, divine inspiration, what have you, however you may understand the way that you're guided by God. And just as one who prunes the land, prunes plants as they grow, is trying to separate out what is extra and what is growth, wild growth, from what is desirable and good growth. So too, the person who plays a song, the minagen, the mizamer, the one who does the pruning through their musical instrument, similarly does the action of choosing, right, taking away what's bad and choosing what's good and what will be growthful. So that, right, all of our lives are full of ups and downs, and our personal narratives are filled with events where we have to kind of prune from between them to form connections, make understanding of who we are and what we're supposed to do, where we're supposed to be. And that melody that is formed via the notes, right, is already, as it comes into the world, is a type of interpretation. So here's where he comes to the different types of grass in different places. Any musical instrument that has strings, right, that has a connection between the two ends of the string. Rabbi Nachman talks about going to the field to hear the song of the strings. The song of the strings is the connection between the grasses, the place where it's the lowest growth, and where you find God tending to the smallest being, right, to the connection to God, right? What's being stretched between that point on earth to God. And that's the shira ta'esev, the shira of each and every plant, each and every blade of grass that grows, is from that string that is kind of strung in between that point of the being that is alive, the blade of grass that grows, and God. And that's the nigun of and every event that happens, any aliyah and yirida, any event that brings us up or raises or lowers us down, is part of that nigun, part of that story. And we're pruning out from the story either the good or the less good, how we're choosing to connect between the notes to form that melody.
Can I toss in here? It strikes me here when Rabbi Nachman says that each shepherd has his own special melody.
Yeah,
that's precisely what Yosef misses. I mean, when he goes at his father's request to check on his brothers, he goes. I mean, maybe he ends up as a man of peace, but he goes to tattletale on them rather than to try to understand each brother's special melody as he's pasturing the flock.
Beautiful. I love that. So this teaching is almost a tikkun for the Yosef beta or whatever, Yosef at the beginning. Interesting.
Yeah, a tikkun. That's nice.
So if we can look back into the text to find some of this rooted here, in number 3, v'zesod ma shekatuv, and this is the deeper meaning of the verse. Vateled ada et Yaval, hu haya avi yoshev ohel umikneh, yoshev ol mikneh, v'shem achiv Yuval, hu haya avi kol tofes kinor v'ugav. This is the deeper meaning of the verse. In Adabor Yaval, he was the father of tent dwellers with cattle. His brother's name was Yuval, and he was the father of all who play harp and flute. Ki techaf k'shaya ba'olam ro'eh mikneh, haya techaf klei zemer kanal. Right, so he's explaining how the spiritual roots is what really nourishes us at the source, and from there we get what nourishes us physically, which is kind of an interesting concept, right? That he's saying, as soon as the world had a shepherd cattle, there were musical instruments, right? We needed musical instruments in order to make the physical sustenance work and grow. V'alkein David HaMelech alav shalom haya yodeh nagin, and therefore, because King David, may peace be upon him, was a skilled musician, alkein haya ro'eh, therefore he was a shepherd, and we find that too in Matinu Gam Ba'avot Ha'olam Kulo, shehayu ro'eh mikneh, that they were all shepherds, that they were kind of guiding according to the needs of their cattle in the fields that they found themselves. They were taking out the nigun from the place in which they found themselves, each blade of grass, every animal and their needs. And this is the concept, miknaf ha'aretz zimrat shamanu, from the end of the earth we heard song. Songs and melodies emerge from the end of the earth. Okay, so here's where the whole world as an instrument kind of, right? And that's also like a deeper mystical, more ancient mystical understanding that I remember in one of my religion 101 classes, that one of the concepts of the mystics, it wasn't a Jewish mystic, that the world is a very large instrument that is just being played, and it's our job, I guess, quote unquote, right, to attune ourselves to the sounds being made on the metarim, on the strings that the universe is, that God is playing on the harp of the universe. It wasn't a harp, but I love that concept is here, and as well as in broader mystical ideas of the world as a musical instrument kind of vibrating, and we have to find out where we resonate. Just a second, Rivka had her hand up, and then. Wait, so Rivka was citing a teaching from Rav Kook. If say that again for one, Rav Kook teaches that prayer and music emerge from the soul, and they're a song of the soul, and good, and that's our soul connecting to the cosmos. So a similar teaching from Rav Kook. Again, like it's throughout mysticism. It's not just Jewish mysticism. It's this idea that there's a flow that we can find ourselves in the universe. Yeah. The metallurgist.
First of the blacksmiths.
Yeah.
And we actually visited blacksmith down in North Carolina. Rabbi has a little field. And, father and son were making horseshoes. They were making these beautiful wrought iron things, but they were using an anvil. And they explained to us the song of the anvil. And they specifically, being in Bible Belt, linked it to Tuval Kain. We are continuing Tuval Kain's tradition.
Amazing.
But they were hitting, they had to notify one another where they were hitting on that anvil. Like they could smash someone's hand with, they're coming with these heavy hammers. So they have a signal. However, they tap on that and they indicate I'm doing this or I'm doing that. And the other one signals back with his hammer, but it's a song that goes back and forth between the two blacksmiths as they're working on this piece of metal.
Beautiful. Right. So pointing out that there's one ancestor missing here, Tuval Kain, who was the father of metallurgy and blacksmithing, and there's a song involved in that too, as is evidenced by your visit with blacksmiths in North Carolina, who said that they actually they make musical kind of code to each other to tell each other where they are so that they don't hurt each other in the process of the work, and that creates some sort of song, which is kind of really, really cool, right? That there's song in this, right? It's physical but also spiritual at the same time. Okay. The Miknafa Aretz Zimra Shamanu 4. Okay, this concept from the end of the earth we heard song, Isaiah 24:16. Hainu shezmirot v'nigunim yotzim miknaf haaretz, ki al yedei hasavim hagdelim ba'aretz na'asa nigun. I.e., this means that songs and melodies emerge from the end of the earth because melody is produced through the grasses which grow in the earth, as mentioned above. And because al yedei haroeh yodeh hanigun, so the roeh here is kind of like the conductor, maybe, right? That he knows the nigun. Al yedei, he knows what melody needs to be produced. Al yedei zehu noten koach ba'asavim. He instills the grasses with energy. And then the animals have what to eat. So the grasses are connected to, the melody is connected through the grasses. The roeh knows the melody and how to discern the melody. He brings the animals to it. He instills the grasses with energy, and the animals have what to eat from the grass. Yeah, it does sound like a conductor almost, right? Of like kind of, I know the larger picture of things. I know what sounds this can produce. I'm going to guide you as the musicians. I need you as the animals to be nourished and then to nourish. And so I can guide you to the right places, to be in the right space, and to kind of get the right nourishment to produce the song, or to keep, right? And everything is kind of, it feels like this electrified picture of the world, right? Everything's full of flowing energy. Yeah. Yeah.
Ourselves too.
Because I wonder who we're supposed to identify with exactly in this Torah, right? Are we the asavim? Are we the ro'eh? Are we the animals who need to know that there's a spiritual foundation to our, physical nourishment? Or I don't know. I'm wondering where it's sitting with you. I guess I'm supposed to be the ro'eh, but I'm like, I don't know if I know the larger picture. I don't know if I can. I don't know. Maybe we're all players in this story. Absolutely. Yeah.
Always them immediately, but all sounds have pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So even right now, I'm hearing the air.
Yeah.
circulate. And if only our ears could hear that, but there is a pitch, so it's the sound.
Uh-huh. Cool, right? This all sound has pitch. There's white noise all around us that sometimes we're more or less attuned to. And that just gives the proof of the fact there might be underlying vibrations that we're not, we haven't trained ourselves to be attuned to. It kind of makes sense, or it can, right? Or that we can't physically pick up, but maybe it's somehow, yeah.
Find a level or a pitch that melds with it to down. For example, I'll just give you a great example because this is very true in my case. In my shul, we have fans that are always on because it's either too hot or too cold. The fans,
Okay.
Somebody forgets to turn the fans before Shabbat. The silence of the room makes it harder to daven. Harder to daven. You notice the silence in the room.
So
Those
interesting.
fans aren't there. When they're there, it brings a flow into the sound and it makes it easier to daven. It's a perfect example of what you just said.
And you know the song of the thing.
Beautiful. There's lots of resonance for rabbis davening in shul in rooms where there's background noise and circulation fans. I know in most places where we daven in SBI, right? If we knew if the kitchen door was open, you could hear the ventilators. Lots of resonance there. But I'm wondering, right? And that's interesting, like whether or not that's part of your tefillah. It's not exactly a spiritual resonance, but I'll take it.
The sound can bring a pitch, like you said, to bring a pitch. You bring your pitch to match it in some way.
Interesting.
And when it's not there,
It's just a felt thing of something that's actually creating. Yeah, of actually creating that noise and being aware of it. And right. And what does it mean to attune yourself to that? And what happens when it's absent? What happens when it's absent? What do you play, by the way? Piano. Cool. So I should have went around and asked who's a musician in the room. You're probably a fair number of you. Yeah.
I had to go back inside, and even then there was some radio. So once we start calming ourselves, we can hear that there's
Totally.
the whole world is full of resonance.
Yes.
Sounds and
Yeah.
I think the whole waves have, there's waves and sounds, and I think because we're water and we have sine waves going on in our body, we're resonating with waves in the world. Because when you go to live music, when you're into the music, I think there's a vibration that you are resonating with in your body. With the world. If we study theology of sound.
Yeah. Right. So it starts with the recognition that there are sounds that we're not always attuned to, and meditation retreats can heighten your awareness of that. That was the first. It's kind of crazy. And there's always waves and sounds going on. Right. And there can be, there's resonance or there's vibration that can kind of bounce off the vibrations going through us, or because we have natural rhythms and we have vibrations. And yeah, absolutely.
And some people are more attuned to those sounds than others. I know from my own child.
Some people are more attuned than others. Yes, totally. Yes, Michael Fishbane has a book called Sacred Attunements. I don't exactly, he gave us a lecture on it at Maharat once, and I forget, he gave us a little series. I don't exactly remember all of it, but yeah, it's something along those lines, right? So, we'll go to 5. Okay, we're gonna speed a little bit. I'll read I'll read more and then we'll have reactions. Okay, so 5. Hanitanim niru ba'aretz et zamir higia, again that keyword zemer, and this is the concept of the first blossoms have appeared in the land. The time of zamir has arrived. In other words, hainu shanitanim gdelim ba'aretz al yidei hazemer. The nitzanim are seen because of, right, adding that causality, because of the zemer, the melody, as mentioned above. It follows that through song and melody, which the shepherd knows, he instills the grasses with energy, and there's pasture for the animals. So it's interesting that it's being conducted through the ro'eh, the person that has this ability to, right? And the Rabbi Nachman has a passage on the minagin, the one who knows how to play, of the one who knows how to sift from the good notes and the bad notes, the ones that belong to the melody and the ones that don't. And that takes a certain type of wisdom to understand how to sift between those. 6. And the nigun is not just for nourishing the grasses and the animals. It's also for the ro'eh, for the shepherd. Because the shepherd is always amongst the animals. It could have been possible that he would have been influenced by hanging out with animals all the time, that his spiritual level might be lowered, right? He might have become more animal-like in his spirit, until the shepherd might have to shepherd himself. Just like they went to be ro'im, to be shepherds for the cattle of their father, the brothers. They went to go put themselves out to pasture. Interesting to look into that, Rashi. Why would that be, right? The Rashi says they went to pasture themselves. But nigun, number 7, you're saved from this descent into animal-like, the spirit of an animalistic spirit. This is the key, right? The melody is the refinement of the spirit, separating, right? And that's another, right? Another malacha that you're not allowed to be borer, right? To sift in between. It's kind of, right? Zmira is kind of like borer. You're taking off the parts of the plant that are no longer serving it and allowing it to grow. Borer, you're separating out the things you want from the things that you don't need. For this is the melody is the refinement of the spirit, separating human spirit from animal spirit, as in as it says in Kohelet, who knows that it is the spirit of the human being which ascends on high and the spirit of the animal which descends below. This is the essence of melody. To gather and select the good spirit, as is explained elsewhere, right? So you're connecting those points that are the good song, the good sound. Certainly sounds like some sort of also like a mental well-being, right? Of being able to sift through, right? What narratives am I hearing? What am I allowing through to myself? Can I sift out what's good and leave aside the mostly negative? As explained elsewhere, and right, the Rabbi Nachman talks about this in terms of the menagin's ruach, where they are. The melody therefore saves him from animal ruach, because through the melody, the human ruach is separated from the animal ruach, right? Recognizing that song and being able to follow along and take the notes that match and leave aside the ones that don't. And again, with the connection between the physical nourishment and the spiritual nourishment, we'll close with number 8. Because the food is drawn via the melody, as is mentioned above. This is the meaning of what he said to his sons: take from Zimrot Haaretz, take from the zemer of the land, what's separated aside as good. I don't know if I had all of the English in the as I put in the Hebrew, so let me just read in the Hebrew a bit. Even before he knew the person that he was addressing was Yosef. Just according to what his sons had told him, his actions, shalach lo nigun hashayach lasar kmoto, right? So Rabbi Nachman, in the intervening space where I put the ... he talks about nigunim that are shayach, that belong to people on lower levels and higher levels, right? There's a nigun for a simpler person, and a nigun for the elite, a sar, someone who's in charge of something. And even without knowing, Yaakov sent Yosef the best of the land, because he knew, right? Zimrat haaretz, he sent him the zemer, the melody that was associated with a sar, someone who was in charge. Kifi masha shamami banav drachab hanagotav, according to what he had heard about his behaviors. Ki Yaakov rata lif'ol etzlo al yedei hanigun masha yatzarich al kain shalach lo oto hanigun shel Eretz Yisrael. He wanted to activate within him the nigun that he needed. So he sent him the nigun of Eretz Yisrael. So it wasn't just the melody, it was the melody of the land. You should take with you the nigun of Eretz Yisrael. Shehu bechinat zimrat haaretz. Again, connecting it to the verse, the song of the land, b'kelim shalahem, in their vessels that they had, v'horidu la'ish mincha, and bring the man Yosef a present, me'at tzorim, matvash, nachot, galot, potnim, shkedim, him bechinat mishkalot umidot hanigun. The names of the fruits that he brought, these are the concepts of the melody, scale, and rhythm. Because melody is created out of what grows in the land, as mentioned above, right? Connecting back to the esev, and each esev having its own vibration with the above, connection depending on the place and the time and the location. That's what the specific melody is. So Yaakov, it's putting an intentionality behind that gift of, he sent him the appropriate notes that would resonate with him as someone befitting of that gift. Yeah. Reactions to this before there is like a couple beautiful pieces I just wanted to read to you. Yeah.
Zimrat haaretz. As I read it today, I'm reading it. Let's read it now.
Yeah.
The time we're in.
Yeah.
And how this might translate as a moral challenge. Because this isn't, I think, only an ethical issue. This isn't only an issue about food. Maybe for Nachman, I don't mean food, I mean the song and all of that. But the question, I think one of the questions we have to ask ourselves, if we take this Nachman text seriously, is what is the Zimrat haaretz we are exporting now? How does that affect us? How does that affect others? How does it affect the ones who are exporting it? And that crosses that's not, I'm not saying there's only one Zemer being given, but I think you can frame this, I think, also in a way in which this really can be read as a moral challenge to society, not only for Israel, but for others too. If we we know that what melodies is the land putting out that people are catching on or not catching on, and how does that reflect what we want to be doing? So that's what
interesting, right? Just reflecting and connecting it to our modern day. What might it mean for each nation state to have a zemer haaretz, zimrat haaretz, to have its own melody that when it's played, people know, oh, that belongs to the U.S., that belongs to Israel. That's the zemer, that's zimrat haaretz. Sure, you mean the feeling that he knew, that he sent with the fruits, right, of what it means to be Yisrael, right? Like interesting. And we have to think about what it is that we project outwards. What is our melody that we're producing to the world? Cool. Yeah.
Also the ecological level. The grasses are, he didn't say nefesh, he said ruach. So nefesh is the lower level of the soul, and ruach is the next level. Nefesh is like in the physical. And then we have ruach, that he's talking about here, which is more in the spiritual connection to God. And so somehow, if we understand that the grasses are singing the song and it's connecting us to a higher level, all the way up to Shama and whatever. But anyway, if we we understand that this is all connected, it's almost like we are connected to that song of the earth, and we're here to take care of it. And we need to teach, because these are teaching us about ourselves and about how to connect to God, these songs of grasses at one level, and we're taking it higher with our mystical level. So even though the grasses might be in the nephesh physical world, we're experiencing ruach in the spiritual world, and when we realize this connection, we're here to protect the world.
Right. Beautiful. So yeah, Rivka's just reflecting that there are different levels of spirit assigned to different levels of existence. So the physical world is understood, right? There, the animal world, right? There's the nefesh behemit, that's nefesh. It refers to like the more animalistic soul, and we have a ruach, which is a higher soul. And so it might be here that we're being told that the asavim have their own spirit, and when we're attuned to that spirit and we take care of the earth and we're the ones who nurture and cultivate it, we can elevate that nefesh behemit, that the spirit of the physical world, into something higher if we're good caretakers of the world, and we use our access to channel that into ruach, into spiritual or higher elevated existence. And we're all connected, and we need to take care of the world. Good. Tu b'shvat sermon done. Yeah.
So good.
Beautiful.
I want to say that it actually resonates, and what I think is that some people don't hear the song there. Some people don't hear the song because their political agenda makes them deaf to it, and it gets in the way. It's those who hear the song of the earth that can bring out the spiritual values that are important to everyone, and let them resonate with everyone else, because they can echo it out, and those who are deaf to it don't do that. So I just want to mention
It's beautiful, because what Michael said actually made me nervous to respond to, because I was like, oh, it's political, I can't touch it. And you were like, no, it wasn't. It's actually there's a song of a country that's natural to it, or a country. So it's not a nation state, it's just the land that we try to force all this stuff onto it. And it's just, there's a natural song that if we were only listening, we could tap into that and project it outwards.
You've paved over so much of it.
Yeah.
How often are you walking on the earth?
Right. We've paved it over. We gave it an ideology. We gave it a nationality. We gave it, an army. And what do we do with it? Yeah, we've kind of silenced it.
I would then pull it back to individuals. Hear their own.
Yeah.
Trying to say something found on it, that I don't know, that there are, I mean, I can understand the difference between, like, okay, so there's an animal song and then there's a human song. We can distinguish all that and make a different song, and it's only the rare dog that can sing. But you use the word elite, and I'm just wondering, because I
think I said elevated.
Help it. I see a musical parallel.
Huh.
That there are some songs that you can easily change keys.
Yeah.
Happy birthday. Young there. Everybody can sing that, because if it's too high, you just start lower. But then there are other songs that are very elite. They have to be played in that key, because that's how the composer wrote it. And you can't transpose it. You can't change the key. So it's interesting when you use the word elite. That
it seems ironic that there aren't more Tu B'Shvat songs after listening to you. Like, they're very few. We need some Tu B'Shvat songs.
So the first comment was it's some songs are easily transposed and transferred from key to key, and others are meant to be in a certain key and cannot be. And how might that serve as a metaphor? I'm curious to hear, and then where are all the Tu B'Shvat songs, given that there's this song of the universe, the song of nature, and there's also a comment of being attuned to the song of ourselves to rip off wall women, right? Right. So
I don't think
the song of the self.
when proofs are determined by this, had this in mind.
Huh.
I might have, but I don't.
So what Rav Hauser argues is the song of Eretz Yisrael, is that, right? So no matter what happens, right? The bottom line is we're meant to know that every story, every song is meant to resolve in peace, in shalom. All the aliyot and yiridot, the sipur of God, the story of God is shalom, right? Another name for God. And so this is a difficult piece, and it's difficult because life is complicated. But he says, right, if we looked at our lives, we would be able to see that when God is calling out to us, and the song of our lives is meant to be a love song from God to us. No proof text, but beautiful, right? And the idea is, just as Yosef saw himself and said, I know my job in each place. I can accept myself, and I see my place, and I'm going to do what's needed. Yaakov saw that in him, but the brothers saw him and said, no, you're not doing what right. I only feel jealousy towards you. I see this as prideful, right? Why are you claiming to be XYZ when we could all be, the favorites or the leaders? Yosef was sure of himself, knew what he was, and knew what he needed to do. And that's the spirit of Eretz Yisrael. Right, it's just being wherever you are as yourself, being able to know that that's a place for closeness with God, and that's a place of faith, that's a place of simplicity where I can't trust or rely on anything else except for God, and it's that place of simplicity, that nigun, that's the nigun of Eretz Yisrael. It's the place of narrowing oneself, like we said, not taking up too much space, of like being in that esev, knowing simply like I'm existing and I'm doing the work of God. It's a place that's very concentrated and very jam-packed of people. It's the place that has the lowest place in the world, and it's to teach us, right, that that's the simplest place where we could have brought our cattle to go and pasture. There we feel, right, classically, right, it's understood, right, that's God put us in such a place so that we would know that we're sluim, that we're dependent upon God and no one else, and that we don't need to make ourselves into something we're not. We don't need to put in efforts in ways that are not authentic, that are inauthentic to who we are. But we need to trust God. We need and to pray. That's the Shirat Asavim, is being in place, being in the Makom HaMitzumtzam, that narrow place of just saying, I know what I am, I know what I do. I will keep trying to serve God in my simplicity and rely only upon God. And that's the song of Eretz Yisrael. That kind of love song of God to us, is saying, I accept you no matter where you are, as you are, for what you need to do in the world. Yeah, that's what he claims is the melody of Eretz Yisrael. Maybe we can unearth it together or push it out in the world together as we continue to think about what our own melodies are, what the melodies of our congregations are, what the melodies of our people are, what they should be. How do we pare down, get simple, go back to them, kind of access them away from all the trappings and the inauthentic projections. So thank you. Thanks for being open and going with me on this. I know it's not always simple to be open to, right? The pushback, again, valid, with you. Rabbi Nachman, he's a fun guy, sad guy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Torah Samach Gimel on the source sheets on Svaria. I hope it leads to lots of more Torah and thinking. If you have any thoughts, email me, guy@hadar.org. If I haven't met you and I have not partnered with your synagogue yet, or we haven't had a conversation, please email me, or I will email you, if you'll allow me. And then we can get some more Torah learning together, or access to amazing resources that Hadar puts out. Let's talk. Yeah. What do I do? What congregations have I worked with? Wow, I need to. You can stop the recording. Yeah. What do I do with them? Cool. And you've had